What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, publisher and lead editor of Ducks Digest, covering the Oregon Ducks for Sports Illustrated on Fan Nation. And we got a solo episode of the podcast today. I am currently away from Eugene, so my setup is a little bit different if you're watching on the YouTube channel at Oregon Football Max Torres, but the show must go on. We still have some updates to get into since we last saw you guys on the last episode of the Duck Stitch podcast, which you can check out when we were talking about the transfer edition of Sam Taimani from Washington, as well as some other recruiting updates for the Ducks as they head into that 2022 offseason, really. And we're kind of getting ready for Dan Lanning and his staff to go full speed ahead, attacking the recruiting trail with just a little bit less than a month to go here until the February signing period. But the main headline that we want to lead off today's episode with is the Ducks hitting in the portal again, striking, making their damage in the transfer portal, and that is with the addition of former Colorado cornerback Christian Gonzalez. He's a guy that Duck fans are probably familiar with. Obviously, you look at the addition of Demetrius Martin from Colorado this offseason to lead the Ducks and their cornerbacks in 2022. I mean, Demetrius Martin is obviously an incredibly qualified coach, very accomplished coach, has really been all over the place on the West Coast and in the Pac-12. I believe it was about this at least 6 stops for Martin in the Pac-12, and he's had a pretty good track record at all those stops. But I mean, with a guy like Gonzalez, you get a proven starter, a starting caliber cornerback, a guy who started at Colorado these past 2 years. He was an all-conference honorable mention last year in 2021. So just again, you're kind of raising the floor of that cornerback group that has seen some attrition this offseason, right? I think when you're looking at the situation for Oregon and why this is a big move for them, big addition rather, you're losing Mikael Wright, who announced that he would be going to the 2022 NFL draft. Some people, myself included, in that crowd, think that he might have benefited from another year at the college level. But I think when you're looking at a new staff coming in, that might have kind of cleared up his decision a little bit to try to head to the league. So your top cornerback's gone. So you want to add a guy, and the Ducks do have a 2022 cornerback signed in Jalil Tucker. But I think when you're looking at kind of the rest of this team, you want to get a guy like a Gonzalez who is maybe a little bit more capable than a true freshman of contributing right away. I think with Gonzalez, I look at some of his stats from last year: 53 total tackles, 42 solo, 5 passes defended, and 5.5 rather tackles for loss. So he can do a little bit of everything. And I think that that's a great example of his versatility, because he's a guy who got recruited as a safety coming out of high school in Texas, and he obviously moved to corner. So you see that he has some good versatility. And I also think the size of this defensive backfield is looking pretty intimidating for Gonzalez. He's 6'2", 200 pounds. So you look at him and some of the other cornerbacks that are going to be involved. Dante Manning's a little bit more of your traditional build as a defensive back, as a corner, kind of in that 5'11", 6-foot range. And I believe he's under 200 pounds. But Triquez Bridges, also a former safety, he's in that 6'2", 6'3 range. So you'll have some really rangy, long cornerbacks that can be physical with these receivers and really help set the tone for that Oregon defense, and that identity that Demetrius Martin wants to create for the Ducks. So I think that that's pretty good when you're looking at kind of some of the guys that are going to be at play here. I talked about Mikael Wright and how he's heading to the NFL draft. The Ducks it looks like they're probably going to be without DJ James next year, after he announced that he would be entering the transfer portal. Or that he did go to the transfer portal. I think we're still waiting on a transfer destination for him. So I was kind of thinking that he could be maybe someone that Dan Lanning and Demetrius Martin can get back in the fold, but still waiting to see where he's ultimately going to end up. You got to figure he's a guy that the Ducks would love to get back in the fold. That'd be a tremendous help for the Ducks, because you could have a guy like Gonzalez and James starting opposite of each other, and then you can kind of work in Dante Manning and Triquez Bridges as needed. But this secondary has definitely seen a lot of movement. You look at obviously the departure of Wright, who we've talked about already, and then Verone McKinley, Oregon's consensus All-American safety, declaring for the draft. So they'll be without him next year. And as far as the safeties go, you're looking at Bennett Williams and Steve Stevens as some guys that could be really involved. Williams was having an awesome year until he got hurt, but he's really, I think, going to become the face of that safety room. Jamal Hill is a guy that has played a lot of football for Oregon, really had his kind of coming out party in the Pac-12 championship game against USC a couple years back in 2019, snagging 2 big interceptions, the second of which really sealed the deal for Oregon to take home that conference title game. And then let's see some of the other guys that are going to be involved for Oregon in that secondary. Let's look at the cornerback position, right? Because that's where Gonzalez is going to be contributing. A lot of young guys, tons of youth. You have Avante Dickerson, Jalen Davies, Darren Barkins. Those guys all come in the 2021 class. And I think this move is really good for Oregon because those 3 guys that I just mentioned, they're definitely capable players, but with the new coaching staff coming in, you don't want to typically be relying on freshmen to really play some important snaps for you. If the Ducks can get up big in some games, kind of the recipe that I think all teams really want to have is where you get up big and then you can ease in some guys when you're ahead and the game is not, hanging in the balance. You can get those guys some really valuable reps so that they can get adjusted more to the college game and contribute and then get adjusted to a new defense, right? That's not going to be an easy task for anybody. You figure that veterans would have an easier time doing that just because they, typically have a higher football IQ just because they've played a lot of reps. And, obviously there's continuity and familiarity between Gonzalez and Martin. So I think those guys are definitely capable of contributing. But like I said, probably better to have a guy like Gonzalez that's ready to go. You figure right when he gets to Eugene. He's a 2020 guy, Gonzalez is. So he's going to have 3 years of eligibility remaining once he starts strapping up the pads for Oregon. He is in Eugene based off of recent social media postings that we saw. So important to get him on the ground and get him ready to work as the team goes into their offseason workout program. We don't know if it's going to be called the fourth quarter program anymore. We'll see if Wilson Love has a new name for it, but I figured it's probably reasonable to think that might be what it's called. Wilson Love, the new head strength and conditioning coach for Oregon. That was announced earlier this week, or last week, I should say. And then the retention of Shad Williams. Again, important to have some continuity for these players as you transition to a new staff. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about here with Christian Gonzalez. The last note that I had here is that for the 2022 class, Oregon still is in the running for Jaleel Florence, who is the former commit for the Ducks in the 2022 class, teammates with Jaleel Tucker. Everybody kind of knows some of the little tidbits of biographical information that kind of go along with him. Ducks have had a lot of success in San Diego. I'm trying to see what the other schools are in the running for him. So let me just see if I can look that up real quick so I can confirm that for you guys. He announced an updated top 5 on January 5th. So January 10th, as I record this, top 5 for Jaleel Florence is the University of Miami, Oklahoma, USC, Oregon, and Florida. So some big schools getting into the picture there following Florence's decommitment from the Ducks in December. So you got to figure that getting a guy like Demetrius Martin, who has really good Southern California ties, good West Coast Pac-12 ties, and having Tucker in the fold is definitely going to help them. And you look at the next little storyline that I wanted to get into here for the Ducks. Tosh Lupoi officially announced as the new defensive coordinator for the Ducks and linebackers coach. He's coming over from the Jacksonville Jaguars after serving as a defensive line coach over there. So that's a huge, huge name for Oregon. This isn't really new news. This was reported back in December while the regular season was still going on, but official, as we always see on Twitter, right? Officially official today, Monday, January 10th. Big news for the Ducks. Big name that the Ducks add to their staff. You think about Lupoi, he's a name that I feel like has always been floating around the Oregon community, the Oregon football community. Every time the Ducks find themselves looking for a new coach, a new staff member, he's got elite West Coast ties, elite recruiter, achieved at a high level at Alabama. People, I feel like, kind of debate some of that success because of how successful Nick Saban's been. But whatever you want to say about that, the dude's won at a high level and he's incredibly accomplished as a coach and a recruiter. That's going to be an asset for your football team every single time. So I think it's going to be interesting now that this on-field staff at least is really assembled more or less to see what both the floor and the ceiling become for the Ducks on the recruiting trail. I think I said a little while ago that I feel like around top 15 is a reasonable expectation or kind of hope for Oregon football fans to have for this 2022 recruiting class, because that 2023 class is going to be the first one where we really see what Dan Lanning and the staff are completely capable of. These 2022 guys, a lot of them, some of them that have already signed, those are more or less Mario Cristobal's guys, if you want to call it that. So, Lanning has a really good group of talent and a great roster to work with as he inherits the head coaching job here at Oregon. But Tosh Lupoi, definitely a big addition. I think he's going to really help the Ducks pick up some more steam on the recruiting trail. And we're going to really try to sink our teeth into some more recruiting stuff to keep you guys updated. I did, like I said, the last podcast I had some good recruiting updates that I think people would find interesting. So if you haven't listened to that or watched that yet, I'll make sure to link to it, but you can go check out my channel, Oregon Football Max Taurus, as well as the Ducks Dish podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts to find that one. Now, moving right along, I want to talk about some more Pac-12 football headlines. I think the first one that I want to talk about here is Jackson Dart, USC true freshman quarterback, entering the transfer portal. That comes from On3's Matt Zenitz. I think it's been reported by numerous outlets since then, but he was the first name that I saw reporting it. So I think that is some pretty solid news. As we're kind of looking for some more clarity around the quarterback position, most important position on the field. So yeah, I did some checking again, and it was Zenit. So I think we're still waiting for that move to be official from Dart himself, but that's a pretty big name. You look at Dart, he kind of, I don't want to say he took Keaton Slovis's job, but that's kind of what it looked like, right? With them kind of being back and forth throughout the season. I was looking at the stats for Dart earlier. Let's see, just want to see what his stats were from his true freshman season at USC. I'm pulling it up here on my laptop, so bear with me. All right, so Jackson Dart at USC in 2021 was 117 for 189. That's just about, doing the math here, that is just about a 61.9% completion percentage as a freshman, threw for 9 touchdowns against 5 interceptions for just shy of 1,400 yards through the air. Also ran for 2 touchdowns and 43 rushing yards. So not a ton of production, but I'd still say pretty solid for appearing in 6 games. So not going to be able to hang on to his redshirt status, but I think this is a big move because we already saw Keaton Slovis, who I talked about earlier. He already transferred to Pittsburgh. He was a veteran in that quarterback room, and then there's just been a ton of movement for quarterbacks all throughout college football. Another one, if you're looking at Lincoln Riley and kind of his connections in the storylines around Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler, a preseason Heisman favorite last year. Well, the college football national championship is tonight, so I feel like I keep bouncing around between when can we say last year and this season. But before the 2021 season, Spencer Rattler was a Heisman favorite. He has since announced that he will be going to South Carolina, and then you have Michael Penix going to Washington to join Kalen DeBoer in year 1. Bo Nix announcing that he's going to be going to Oregon. That's obviously another big one, joining the quarterback room with Ty Thompson and Jay Butterfield, Robbie Ashford. Following that, in the weeks that followed that news, announcing that he's going to be entering the transfer portal. We do not expect him to stay at Oregon. He's going to be exploring new options. So I think just with all of that, this move is really interesting because Caleb Williams has also announced that he's transferring from Oklahoma, entering the transfer portal. And you got to figure that, a move like this from Dart, if he is indeed on the run, I shouldn't say, excuse me, if he is indeed on the move, if Jackson Dart is indeed on the move following this news on Monday, it definitely clears the way for Caleb Williams going to USC to reunite with Lincoln Riley. And man, that would be a huge move for USC for the Pac-12. It would really set up some awesome matchups. When you're looking at, a lot of people thinking that Oregon and USC is going to kind of be the matchup to watch there, the battle for the Pac-12 for years to come, with all the offensive firepower that Lincoln Riley is assembling there at USC. And then with this move, with Dart on the move, Miller Moss is the only scholarship quarterback on the Trojans roster now. So, not an ideal situation for them, but I think, like I've kind of alluded to and said here, it looks like it would make a lot of sense for Caleb Williams to head to USC. So don't be surprised if that's a move that we see follow this news of Dart looking for somewhere to call home. I think I wrote in my story over on Ducks Digest, if you guys want to give that a read, a destination that could make some sense is West Virginia. Why West Virginia? It's because Graham Harrell, USC's former offensive coordinator, got announced as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach over there in Morgantown, West Virginia. So maybe we could see Dart follow the offensive coordinator over to Big 12 country with West Virginia. And then we have another big quarterback piece kind of coming into the picture here for the 2022 season. UCLA quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson has announced that he will be coming back for one more year in Westwood with the Bruins in 2022. I think a reason that this is super interesting is because not too long ago, Dylan Gabriel, former UCF quarterback, announced that he would be flipping his commitment to UCLA. But in the time since, he has announced that he will actually be flipping to Oklahoma. So you're seeing so many different moves by quarterbacks. But I think that Gabriel moving to Oklahoma is Brent Venables a solid guy to work with in year one. You're also looking at Nick Evers, the 2022 quarterback, signing with the Sooners. So Gabriel, like I said, had initially committed to UCLA, but he since announced his flip to Oklahoma. So a lot of interesting names to kind of keep an eye on here in the Pac-12, with DTR announcing that he's going to be coming back to Westwood for one more season. Let's take a look at his stats from the 2021 season. The game against Oregon and UCLA was definitely a good one. They're going to be playing in Eugene in 2022. I believe that game is scheduled for October 22nd. So let's look at some stats for DTR in 2021. He was 176 for 283, threw for 21 touchdowns against 6 interceptions for just over 2,400 yards. And then he was also really effective on the ground, 130 carries for 609 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he obviously has a pretty solid resume at UCLA. You got to think the Bruins are also going to be adding a big quarterback in Justin Martin out of Inglewood in California. So he's a guy I've covered a little bit, got to see him play in person during the 2021 season. Martin's a big dude, really good at improvising on the run when the play breaks down, and has a rocket arm. I remember I was a little bit frustrated after I covered that game because I covered his game the night before Oregon played UCLA back in October. And the next week, I think they put up over 100 points or something. It was absolutely insane. Inglewood is a team that's full of ballers. Those guys, credit to that coaching staff. They get those kids playing at a high level and really supporting them. So I think that's a school that Oregon would be smart to get into looking down the road. And they were involved with Martin a little bit before he initially committed to Cal. But you see how important these quarterback dominoes are. Once you get a quarterback in the fold, I think it really helps the rest of your recruiting efforts. So look for Oregon to prioritize getting somebody in the 2023 class. I think some guys to watch there. You look at Jaden Rashada. He's the guy that got an Oregon offer in the fall, top 2023 quarterback out of Pittsburgh in Northern California. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other names here. Okay, hopefully I don't butcher this, but a lot of people, Oregon fans, are gonna, know about Nicholas Lamalavea out of Warren High School in Downey, California, one of the top cornerbacks in the 2023 class. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. Israel Carter, out of Corona Centennial is a big name as well. He's someone who has had some interest for Oregon for a while now. Pierce Clarkson, the 2023 St. John Bosco quarterback, had a really good relationship with Joe Moorhead, but the Ducks would be smart to get back in communication with him. But I think those are some of the big names to watch as far as the 2023 class goes and the quarterbacks that I see Oregon getting involved with. But I'm trying to think of any other news that I kind of wanted to touch on. Who do you guys have in the national championship game tonight? Alabama or Georgia? You kind of figure that Bama's heading into that one as a favorite, but I know a lot of Duck fans are going to be rooting for Georgia and Dan Lanning, the defensive coordinator over there, new head coach for Oregon. I'm sure right after that game ends, he's probably going to be heading to Eugene real soon here. So that's definitely going to hopefully be a good game, so we can wrap up the 2021 season with a competitive contest for the title. But that's all I have for this edition of the Ducks Dish podcast. You guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube at Oregon Football Max Tours, do me a quick favor and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It's free and it only takes a second out of your day and is a tremendous help. We're almost to 1,000 subs, which is wild to think about, but it's been super, super fun. And I love hopping on here, doing the live streams, doing the videos, doing the podcast, whatever it is. It's always fun to interact with you guys and bring you guys more news, insight, and commentary all about the Ducks, the Pac-12. I feel like now that the season's winding down here, we're probably going to go more big picture stuff with Pac-12 and, national college football stuff. And recruiting is obviously going to be huge. So make sure you stay locked into the YouTube channel. And then if you're also on the social media platforms, you can follow me at mtorres sports on Twitter. And you can follow us at Ducks Digest on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. And make sure you head over to ducksdigest.com to find more Oregon Ducks news. And go ahead and give us a good rating and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That's a big help, and that's a new feature over there on Spotify. So really appreciate your guys' support. That'll do it for the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm Max Torres, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care.